Welcome to Face2Face. Vox Telecoms appears to have merged through a pretty rough year. Intact revenues grew 13% to 2.1 billion rand. Operating profits fell 3% to 132 million rand, but headline earnings per share rose 53% to 6.2 cents. And I'm joined now by Tony van Marken, who's CEO of the company. Tony, thanks very much for coming into the studio.
Thanks for having me.
I had to resist calling you an upstart there, so I had to quickly change that. But just talking about the figures for this financial year, has it been quite tough? Because on the surface of it, it doesn't look too bad.
Yeah, it's actually been a very tough trading year for us. We've had fairly good growth as a whole at 13% revenue growth, but Vox Iran was flat. We churned 14,000 customers in our consumer business, and we've churned some corporate customers, which really are a function of difficult economic conditions. We've had high bad debts in our corporate base, and on the consumer side we've seen quite a lot of pain. And I think in balance, we've actually done reasonably well through this economy.
Tony, just mentioning those bad debts, they leapt up to 12 million rand, I think, from about 700,000 last year. So a really big increase. You say it's particularly among your corporate customers.
Correct. You know, we increased our provision from 18 to 23, and we wrote off 12 million. We had provided for it, but not written it off in the previous year. It was a couple of big customers that had issues and went out of business, and then there'd been a high level of liquidations and small businesses basically hitting the wall, and you can't really control that, and there's no prospect of any recoverability.
And do you think it's going to continue into 2010 or the 2011 financial year rather?
I think we've probably seen the worst of it, you know, and I think we've dealt with it quite well. We have increased our provision. We basically have a policy of anything over 90 days, we take a provision for that. But I don't think it'll get worse, let me put it that way.
Okay, you also had to jettison some sort of low margin business. Was it contracts that you cancelled because they weren't providing rich enough margins for you, or was it businesses that you actually closed? What was it exactly?
What happened was we inherited a number of commercial agreements through some of our acquisitions, in particular Storm Telecom, and some of those agreements we attempted to renegotiate on new terms, and if we couldn't do that, we decided not to continue with those arrangements. And in some cases, you know, it just doesn't make economic sense for us and the customer, and we explain that. So we've been quite disciplined in trying to maintain our margin levels, because it's got to work for both parties at the end of the day.
Okay. On the subject of ARPUs, which are important for telecoms companies, they went up to 272 rand a person, which is obviously a positive. Are you trying to get them further, though?
Yeah, ARPU is a key measure of our business. Now, if you look at each different business, in our consumer ISP business, Atlantic, although we churned 14,000 customers, we grew ARPU from 99 to 135. In the telepreneur business, across 9,300 customers, we grew that to 272, and in Data Pro, across 7,600 customers, we increased that ARPU from 3,700 rand to just over 5,000 rand. Iran was pretty flat, but generally you can see the trend is going in the right direction. That's a key focus in our business.
Well, is it going in the direction quickly enough for you? I mean, you mentioned your Atlantic customers. I think your target there is 150 rand ARPU per person.
Correct.
Will you be able to achieve that this new financial year?
I think Atlantic will do better in the next year. I think this has been really tough in the consumer segment for us. And you know, when your customer's not making 130 rand a month debit order, you know he must be having a difficult time. So I think we can have quite a lot of success. We're also selling voice through our Atlantic channel now for the first time, so we're hoping to see some take up there.
The thing is, how do you actually bring those ARPUs higher? Do you charge your customers more, or do they
sell them more product?
Okay.
You just give them more and more value and more product, and that's what we focus on doing.
Okay, Tony, on the subject of interconnection, it's been the issue that's really dominated the telecom sector in the last couple of months. How is this going to affect Vox? Because personally, I'm a little bit dim on the issue. The government wants to, well, it will bring down interconnection rates to, I think, 89 cents by March next year, and then further to 80 cents by 2012. Is this going to have a negative or a positive effect on your business?
Yeah, it actually has a positive and a negative impact. So for Vox Telepreneur and for our Vox Crystal Vox solution that we've launched, it improves the margins in that business and makes it more compelling for the customer. But in the Orion business, which arbitrages the cost of outbound fixed to mobile phone calls, that makes them on net, effectively what happens by reducing wholesale interconnect, you reduce the saving that's available to the customer. And by 2012, there's really going to be very little economic incentive to deploy that traditional sell router technology at the customer's premises. So what we're doing is we're migrating all those corporate customers onto our voice network to a solution we call Crystal Vox, which is a carrier class telco grade solution, and that during that period of time there will be some negative impact on our margins and our profits, but as we come through that 18 to 24 month period, I think we'll emerge with stronger margins and a better base of business, and that whole LCR model will have been completely replaced.
So also you mean least cost routing model?
The cellular least cost routing model, because keep in mind, least cost routing will always be there. It's just a question that's a routing calls over the least cost route to you as a supplier, and trying to save your customer money against incumbents like Telkom.
Now you mentioned that you're going to be migrating, or that your customers will be on your own network. So have you actually been investing in fiber optic cabling, that kind of thing? Perhaps you could just give an update on what you've been doing there.
Yeah, well, first of all, we've been in the data business for 12 years. So we built a data network first, and then we've overlaid voice on top of that. So it's the same network. In the last fiscal year, we invested over 50 million rand in capex into that network. We upgraded all of our routers to Juniper. We've also now, with our new ECNS license, deployed fiber on high traffic routes. So we've got fiber in Gauteng. We're also running fiber into some of the mobile operators like Vodacom and MTN, because we're moving a huge amount of interconnect traffic. So we've got a carrier class next generation network, and that's the key. If you're in the LCR business and you don't have this a network and an alternative, it's very little you can do. And we've been aware of these changes to interconnect for some time, and we've been prepared for it, and we've been in the voice business for 4 years. So we've put in place the physical interconnects, we have the commercial agreements in place. Now we just need to execute, move this traffic, and of course just grow organically with customers.
And do you think you'll be able to do it in the time frame that you've given yourselves, which I think you said 18 to 24 months?
Correct. I mean, we need to make sure by March 2012 that this is completely done. And the whole company's geared up to do that, so it's a major focus for us.
Tony, just on your corporate customers, I think you've got 16,000.
Correct.
Do you have a target for where you'd like to be, or do you not set yourself targets? You'd like to grow it as big as possible, I presume?
Yeah, we don't really set a customer target, because you can have customers of different sizes. It's really, we're looking for very strong organic growth. We want to make sure we improve our margins and improve our profitability, but we're also going to be impacted. There's one key regulatory hurdle left in our view, which is local number portability, and we feel that a lot of pressure needs to be placed on ICASA and the government, which have played a key role in interconnect rates, to deal with that issue so that we can port any customer's number very easily. And I think that ultimately will have a bigger impact on pricing and competition than a drop in wholesale interconnect rates.
Because people hold on to their numbers. They don't actually, they get quite lazy, or if not lazy, just you don't want the admin involved in changing your numbers.
Correct. And if I come to you, I can offer you an 087 number, and now I have geographic number ranges, so I can offer you an 012 number, 021, etc. But you've got to change. And for a lot of corporates in particular, they're not willing to do that. But if there's a compelling enough saving, we are seeing a take-up, but it would go much faster if we had full portability.
Fortunately, we have to leave it there. Thanks very much for coming to studio.
Thanks very much for your time.
Sure. That's Tony from Marken. He's CEO of Vox Telecom, which released 4-year numbers.